Hello everybody, welcome to Nora's Vine. I'm Nora Vineyard and today we will be making an apple pie crumble. We are going to be making apple pie. It will be made with cassava flour and coconut sugar and a traditional family apple filling. You probably saw this recipe on my Thanksgiving vlog, but I thought I would go and show you a little more detail into how to make this recipe and this delicious crust that is a lot more healthful and used with healthful ingredients instead of rice and gluten and all those other flours that are generally a little more carby and a little more lectin-y. Right, so you want to mix this all together until it becomes very dough-like. It will be quite crumbly, and you probably won't be able to pull or to roll it out, but it will be thick enough that it won't melt in the pan. I've had that happen a couple times, and it becomes just kind of a goop, and it takes a lot longer to cook. So you'll want it about this texture so that it's crumbly, and you probably won't be able to roll it out, but it will still piece together like this, and you'll be able to mold it a little bit, and that way you can layer the bottom of your pie pan. All right, so next up I'm going to be buttering my pie pan, and I'm just going to let this sit on the bottom before we lay out the rest of our dough. I have the oven preheated to 375 degrees, which is what we will bake our pie at. And yeah, just make sure that you get the butter all up on the edges and at the bottom. And it's kind of a learning process, but you'll want to use enough butter that it doesn't stick to the pan, but not so much that it also soaks into your crust and makes it a lot more moist than you need it to be. So you really just want to coat the outside of the pan, and it's just kind of a learning process to learn how much butter you need, but you really just want to coat the edges and not to be too thick. So about like so. It's really just coating all the surfaces that the pie will touch, but it's not super thick, so hopefully it won't sink into the rest of the pie crust and make it all moist and smushy. Next up, we will be putting our crust, which we've pre-made, into our pan. You'll want to make it into about a little ball, kind of like so, and then set it in the middle of your pan and just knead it out with your hands, so that it touches all the edges. You can add a little more if you need. Usually the crust recipe I make makes about either 2 full pan sizes, or if you want a crust topping, which I will show you how to make my crumble top for my apple pies, then usually the rest can be used for that. But it makes generally about 2 full pie pans. All right, so I have an assortment of apples here. We have some grannies, a golden delicious, a bunch of rocket apples, and I think a pink delicious here that all are on their way out, and I thought what better way to enjoy them than just to make them all into a pie. So that is what we will be doing here. I'll just be cutting up a bunch of apples. Alrighty, so our crust is out of the oven and we are going to start on our filling. This is an old family recipe for our apple pie, and it includes cinnamon, nutmeg, salt, some type of flour. I'm using cassava flour, but you can use a less carby flour like almond, or even like a starch like tapioca starch, lemon juice, and butter, as well as some type of sweetener. I like to use a mix of coconut sugar and new or whole earth sweetener, which I will get out in a moment. This all goes and mixes in with the apple. I will show you what I use for proportions, but you are free to experiment as you please, because everyone likes to have a little different sweetness or tartness. We prefer like a little more lemon in ours, for example. Some people like it a little sweeter, so they might use more coconut sugar, but it's just preference, so whatever you want to use. All right, so once that is all mixed together, you probably want to try an apple just to see before it goes into the pot whether you want to add anything. So I'm thinking mine needs just a little more cinnamon, and we will be good. Also, this is a great apple recipe to just throw in a pan if you have a little left over, and just heat it up for yourselves to have with dinner as just kind of a baked apple recipe. You can add a couple pecans to it, and it'll be good. Alright, so now that we have our apple filling in our pie crust, I'm going to make a crumble topping. So I just added a little more water to what was left from our crust, and I'm going to be adding cinnamon and a few more sweeteners to it, so it's a little more dessert-like and less a bottom crust. Here we go, we have a little cassava flour, we might add a little more of that, and then let's get out our fuller sweetener. Add some of that. Just a little more cinnamon. Never go wrong with too much cinnamon. Ooh. It smells good, but goes up your throat. And just make it into a little crumble. And that crumble goes on top of your pie. All right, everybody, so the pie is done, and you can see it looks very good. So it has that nice crunchy top, or like crumble top, that's browned. You have your sugar that's been crystallized a little bit, and then you have your bottom crust and of course your filling. So that is our pie. I'm going to go ahead and cut into it here. Oh, it's super crumbly and buttery. That's a good sign. This is an excellent recipe if you have a little one or a friend that you like to cook with, or a sibling. because there's so many different parts that can be worked on at the same time. And so you can all feel like you're doing your own part, and it's really safe and easy, except, putting things in and out of the oven. But overall, it's really safe and easy. I used to make this pie, the cassava flour version, with my grandma all the time. Is one of my fondest memories with her. It reminds me of being over at my grandparents and just making pie. The smells bring back memories, and it's just a lot of fun to do with someone else. But it's also great to do alone and eat alone. So if you're into that, let's go ahead and try these. We're going to get out our piece of pie. Crumble. Here is our pie slice. I'm going to go ahead and try a little. Try a little of this pie. That is super good. You have that apple and cinnamon flavors mixed in with that nice tart lemon juice, and then the crust is just so crumbly and delicious. Anyway, that will be all for our pie baking video, and I will see you next week. Okay, everyone. Well, as always, I hope you enjoyed this week's video. And if you have any suggestions or recommendations for what I should do in the near future, let me know in the comments below, and I will see you next week.